I collapsed in front of a courthouse at 10:47 on a Tuesday morning. Not because I was weak, but because my body finally told the truth my mouth had been lying about for months. The divorce papers were still warm in my hands, the judge's words still echoing in my ears, and I remember thinking in the strangest, calmest way. So this is what rock bottom actually feels like. Not dramatic, not loud, just heavy. Like gravity suddenly doubled and decided I wasn't worth holding upright anymore. People walked past me. Suits, phones, coffee cups. No one stopped. And honestly, I didn't blame them. I looked like exactly what I was. A woman who had lost. Lost her marriage, lost her voice, lost the version of herself who thought loyalty was always rewarded. I'd spent years being underestimated, talked over, gently dismissed with smiles that said, "You're lucky to be here, don't ask for more." And that morning the system did what it always does. It stamped my failure, handed it back to me, and moved on to the next case. What I didn't know was that someone else was walking out of that building at the exact same time, carrying his own defeat in a manila folder, someone who had also been told politely and legally that he was replaceable. I woke up in a hospital room with fluorescent lights buzzing overhead and a stranger sitting in a chair like he'd been there all night. He looked exhausted, tie-loosened eyes red, the kind of man who'd cried earlier and hadn't bothered to hide it. When I tried to sit up, my head spun and he was suddenly at my side, steadying me, saying, "Easy, easy, you're okay." His voice wasn't rehearsed. It was real. That's how I knew something was different. They told me later that he caught me before I hit the concrete, that he yelled at people to call an ambulance, that when the nurse asked who he was, he didn't hesitate. He just said, "I'm her husband." And that lie, said with more conviction than my ex ever used to tell the truth, changed everything. My name is Claire Holloway. Or it was. By noon that day, it legally wasn't anymore. I had married, Young stayed quiet, played the supportive role while my husband climbed, and when he finally decided he'd outgrown me, he made sure everyone knew it wasn't personal. Just practical. He said it with a smile. He said it like I should be proud of how understanding I was. I found out about the affair the way people always do. Not through a confession. Through carelessness. A phone left unlocked. A message that wasn't meant for me. I confronted him, shaking hopeful in the stupidest way, and he didn't even deny it. He just sighed and said, "I didn't think you'd take it this hard." That sentence still makes my jaw clench. I begged. That's the part people love to judge. But when you've been taught your entire adult life that your value comes from being chosen, you fight to be chosen. He watched me cry on the kitchen floor and said, "You're making this harder than it needs to be." And that's when I realized I wasn't married to a villain. I was married to indifference, which is worse. The man in the hospital chair introduced himself as Evan Cross. He said he'd been at the courthouse for his own divorce, that his wife left him for someone else, that he didn't usually talk to strangers, but something about watching me fall made his feet move before his brain could catch up. "Yeah, that happened," he said, with a dry half-smile, like he couldn't believe his own life anymore either. Then the doctor came in. Calm voice, clipboard, the kind of professional neutrality that carries bombs. She told me my collapse was due to severe emotional stress and exhaustion. Then she paused, looked at Evan, looked back at me, and said, "There's something else. You're pregnant. About 8 weeks." I laughed, a sharp hysterical sound that didn't belong to me. Pregnant, divorced, alone. It felt like the universe was either mocking me or daring me to survive. Evan didn't say anything. He just handed me a tissue and stayed. Didn't look away when I cried. Didn't try to fix it. Just stayed. I couldn't go back to the house I shared with my ex. Every room felt like an accusation. Evan offered his place. Not romantic, not dramatic. Just a spare room privacy, no pressure. I said no 3 times before saying yes because pride is loud even when it's starving. Living with Evan was quiet at first. 2 people walking carefully around their own wounds. He didn't ask invasive questions. He knocked before entering my space. He stocked the kitchen with things I could eat without nausea. Little things. Respectful things. The kind of things my ex used to say were unnecessary. Weeks passed. My body changed. My mind followed more slowly. Evan worked from home. I started breathing again. We talked late at night sometimes about how being loyal doesn't protect you from being discarded, about how society loves confident men and compliant women, about how being kind is often mistaken for being weak. The first real confrontation came when my ex showed up unannounced. Expensive jacket, practiced remorse. He looked past me into Evan's house and smiled like he was amused. "So, this is what you landed on," he said. "A rebound with a hero complex." Evan didn't raise his voice. He just stepped beside me and said, "You should leave." The calm in his tone was surgical. My ex laughed and said she always needed someone to save her, and that's when I spoke up, voice steady for the first time in years. "I don't need saving. I needed you to stop tearing me down." Big difference. He didn't expect that. Bullies rarely do. He left angry, threatening, saying I'd regret this, saying I was making a mistake. And for the first time, I didn't crumble afterward. I just closed the door and leaned against it, heart racing, realizing something inside me had shifted. The pregnancy progressed. Evan went to appointments with me, not as a replacement, as support. He read books, asked questions, treated my body like it belonged to me, not to his expectations. When the baby kicked for the first time, I grabbed his hand without thinking. His eyes filled with tears and he whispered, "Hey there, little one," like he already loved someone he didn't have to. My ex came back again, this time softer. Broke. His affair had imploded. His job was shaky. He wanted another chance. Wanted his family. Wanted the baby. He said, "You owe me that." And I laughed. Not cruelly, just honestly. "I don't owe you access to my life because you're lonely now. You opted out when it mattered." He threatened court, custody, said judges favor biology. Evan didn't interrupt. When my ex finished, Evan said, "You had a chance to be a partner. You chose convenience instead. You don't get to rewrite history because the ending didn't work out." My ex looked at me, waiting for me to soften. I didn't. I said goodbye and meant it. Labor was brutal. No movie magic. Just pain and fear and moments where I thought I'd split in half. Evan held my hand the entire time. When I said I couldn't do it, he said, "You already are." When my son was born and placed on my chest, screaming and perfect, I cried so hard I could barely breathe. Evan cried too, unapologetically. Later, when the room was quiet and my son slept, Evan asked if he could adopt him someday. Not as a condition, as a question. I said yes without hesitation, because fatherhood isn't DNA, it's presence. It's choosing to stay. We built a life that wasn't flashy, but it was honest. My ex faded into a cautionary tale. Evan became my partner, not because he rescued me, but because he never once treated me like someone who needed rescuing. He treated me like someone worth standing beside. Here's the part people argue about. Some say I moved on too fast. Some say I should have given my ex another chance. Some say Evan crossed a line by stepping in. I say this. Being underestimated taught me how dangerous silence can be. Being betrayed taught me that loyalty without self-respect is self-destruction. And being supported taught me that real power doesn't shout. It stays. So, I want to know what you think. Was I right to shut the door on my past so completely, or do people deserve second chances no matter what they cost? Have you ever been judged as weak when you were actually surviving? Drop your thoughts below. I read every single one.